welcome back to my channel. If you are new here and like the video, be sure to hit the like and subscribe button for more content. Thank you for watching. Hello everybody, sorry for this long and overdue wait for the kidnapping prank. This was actually supposed to be my 6K subscriber special, but I'm not gonna lie, I have no idea what happened during that period, but then I got sick and now I'm moving, so it's like, it's a mess. So thank you all so much for all of your patience, and thank you so much for 6K subscribers actually. I could not get to 6K without any of y'all, so thank you guys so much. For that, here is some hurt comfort with BokuAka, KuroKen, and IwaOi with the kidnapping prank. Yeah. This is going to be sort of a revamp for BokuAka, so I'm kind of excited for that. And then KuroKen, I'm not too sure. That one took a turn, not gonna lie. I had no plans for it, and then that happened, so yeah. Anyways, one more announcement. Hello my lovely viewers. Looking for some affordable and good quality anime merch? Want to support your favorite Haikyuu team or join UA? What about joining the Straw Hat Pirates for an adventure or two? Want to join the Black Wolves or the Fairy Tale Guild? Well, this site has that and so much more. Use my discount code and receive 10% off your entire order. Link and code is in the description. Thank you so much for watching. Akashi must admit parts of him were hesitant to go through with a prank such as this one, seeing as it resembled his other over-the-top pass-out prank when he wrecked his home and made it appear someone had broken in. It had been over a year since he pulled that prank. He smirked, knowing it may be a truly horrid idea. However, he wanted to revamp the whole deal with this new prank. After all, he was an actor and tended to go over the top with his devious pranks. As if it were in his favor, his friend Bokuto was on his way to pick him up for morning practice. He inwardly cringed, seeing that they still went by the term friends. Everyone else had their good fortune with their relationships, and then there was him. It made him believe his feelings were only one-sided, and maybe he was the problem. Maybe he was just unlovable. He shook the negativity rotting his mind, noticing that he didn't have much time left, and texted Washio, Fukurodani's middle blocker, to hurry over to assist him with his prank. It would definitely distract him from his mind. Nearly 10 minutes later, he was at the door, barging in without even knocking. What the? No time, he isn't far. Akashi glanced out the window and sure enough found the captain turning on his road, luckily getting distracted with a stray cat. What are we? The rest of his words became muffled when a piece of fabric was tied over his mouth. Akashi maneuvered around, shoving his friend off, tripping over the coffee table, resulting in him landing harshly on his back. The teller scoffed. At least try not to wrestle that much, although a little bit would add effect. Keep up the good work. He nodded his head, grabbing the rope from his bag. Just what did he bring? The setter backed up a bit, accidentally knocking into the TV stand, knocking it down. Both boys stilled, staring at the disaster that was in front of them. Was that expensive? No shit. He jumped, seeing the door swing open and the owl barge in. Washio quickly threw a mask over his head, grabbing Akashi, who was tied up further into the house. Kashi! Washio yanked Akashi, accidentally slamming his head into the wall, making him grunt through the gag, making his kidnapper falter in carrying out with the prank. Hearing the sounds of struggle, Bokuto turned the corner, seeing the scene that plagued his dreams time and time again. Ever since the pass-out prank, those images crossed his mind, blinding him of any reason. He almost thought that this too was just another one of his dreams, but this felt too real. A masked man towered over the raven who was on the ground, tied up with his eyes trying to focus on his surroundings, a small string of red coming from the side of his head. What the hell? His voice was dark, laced with venom that could kill within seconds. Both of them looked up, meeting Bokuto's dark gaze. Before Washio could explain that it was him, the ace nailed him straight in the jaw, making him fall into the wall. Bokuto stormed up to him, yanking him onto his feet by holding him up by his shirt. What the fuck do you think you're doing? Washio ripped off his mask, his jaw aching at the movement. Oh dude, it's just me. Yet, his eyes only grew darker. Washio? What the fuck? I trusted you! His mouth opened, yet no words could come out. In fact, he stood there speechless, wanting Akashi to vouch for him, but realizing he was still gagged. The setter whined at the throb in his head, making the older throw Washio to the side. Get out of my sight. Within seconds, he was at Akashi's side, quickly untying the ropes that had bounded him and pulled the gag down to his neck. Kashi? It almost made him laugh at how quickly he went from cold and deadly to the most caring and gentle person, although he couldn't, so fixated on the pain in his head. He curled up into a ball, holding his head in the fetal position in Bokuto's lap. I'm done. Does it hurt? Bokuto glared over at Washio, who stayed still on the floor. A little, but that's not what I'm talking about. He sat up, almost forgetting the idea when a sudden wave of nausea hit him, so he lowered back down on Bokuto's shoulder. Washio-san isn't at fault. It is mine. It was a prank, and it dragged him into it. I realize now we have extremely bad habits with going over the top. But what about your head? Akashi sighed in relief, finding comfort in the vibrations of the taller's chest whenever he talked. That was real, an honest mistake. I apologize. Bokuto glared at the middle blocker before groaning out loud in frustration, not knowing who or what to be mad at. Fine. We'll talk more on what to do with that later. Right now, I'm sure Kashi needs a doctor. I wouldn't be surprised if he got a concussion. Bokuto grimaced, not wanting the smaller to have to go through that pain, yet he noticed the lack of the setter in their conversation. He was quiet. Too quiet. Kashi? He shook his shoulder gently to get him up, but he didn't move. He just stood there, still. Kashi? His frustration was rapidly replaced with worry, his pulse racing, not getting any response from the latter. Shit. Washio ran to get his bag to grab his phone to call for an ambulance, at least that's what Bokuto assumed. Keiji, wake up! Kenma was pissed. While he did understand that what Kuro had done was his praying, that still didn't mean it didn't scare him shitless. He would have never understood those images that flashed through his mind, seeing Kuro on the ground like that. He took this opportunity to wreak havoc with his revenge prank. While it had been a while, and truly had forgave him for being an idiot, it was time for his revenge. Kenma quite literally had every weapon at his arsenal for this prank. Yaku could easily pass for someone to snatch him up with his aggressiveness. Yamamoto was, well, Yamamoto. There wasn't much to be said there. Not to mention love and his whole Russian mafia, although maybe getting the mafia involved for a homeless prank would be a bit excessive. Yamamoto it is, but maybe specify what lines not to cross? It was fine. Besides, he wanted to go overboard with this. This couldn't go wrong, right? It was Yamamoto, of course it could go wrong. Even during April Fools, Yamamoto ended up sending Kuro to the emergency room. Kemma still couldn't believe how throwing a pie at him gave him a concussion. Now walking hand in hand with his lover, Kuro, he knew the chances of pulling this prank off was close to none. Luckily, he had messaged Yamamoto prior to the game picked up, but something told him that he would look like an absolute idiot after. Either that, or the prank would successfully get pulled off, and then he didn't know what then. Kuro had always been protective over him, ever since they were kids, so he didn't know what could happen. The possibilities made him nervous, yet he knew he couldn't turn back now, seeing his teammates in his peripheral vision. He sighed, nonchalantly removing his hand from the ladders, who frowned at the lack of warmth. Kinma, why'd you let go? He whined, making the setter laugh lightly, never realizing how adorable the taller could be. It didn't help that he could act like a puppy, making him want to drop the prank entirely. Sorry, I just remembered this level I needed to beat before practice. It won't take long, it's just a time thing. He could practically feel the frown grow, so out of pettiness, he quickened his pace. Was he seriously running away? Kenma's eyes narrowed. Any remorse he felt prior had dissipated to nothing. Kuro, slow down. Your stupid long legs. By now, he was several feet ahead, and that was when Yamamoto decided to take action. With a mask covering his face, he jumped out of the shadows from the alleyway, grabbing Kenma from the sidewalk. Kenma yelped, dropping his switch, clattering to the pavement as he began fighting against his iron-strong grip. He bit his hand that covered his mouth, taking the chance to yell out for Kuro's name. Kuro! The captain whipped his head around so quickly, he nearly received whiplash, but ignored it, seeing that his lover was out of his sight. He sent shivers down his spine, realizing that that was a call for help. Kenma? He ran back down the sidewalk, coming across the alleyway, seeing the blonde fighting against a man who was much bigger than him, holding him down and pressing a cloth to his mouth. Don't breathe, Ken. He knew what that was all too well. He certainly didn't learn all that chemistry for nothing. That cloth was laced with chloroform, and if Kenma did breathe it in, he would be insensible and lose consciousness. Kenma held his breath, using his nails to dig into Yamamoto's jacket, knowing it wouldn't hurt him. The kidnapper reached into his back pocket and placed the object onto Kenma's neck, making them all still and quiet. Whenever Kenma went through what crossing the line meant, he sure as hell didn't mean bring a knife to the prank. The setter's amber eyes widened. A noise escaped his throat that he couldn't quite define. He didn't know what was more surprising, Yamamoto actually bringing a knife, his fear growing by the second, or seeing Kuro drop to his knees with his hands in the air, begging him to drop the knife. No, please. I beg you. Don't hurt him. The setter felt the lad knee him in the back, making him fall to the ground. The cloth forgotten, he threw it to the side, grabbing a handful of his hair and lightly tugging him up. Then you won't follow? He stayed silent, not wanting to go and watch him take his lover away. The captain searched for his eyes, his own filled with nothing but pure panic. He never felt this terrified in his life. This wasn't what he wanted. Well, he did want his revenge for making him feel so panicked. It never occurred to him that he'd never want Kuro to feel that same fear. Seeing that this was miles from crossing the line, Kema put an end to this by elbowing his kidnapper and shoving himself away. That's enough, you fucking psychopath! Kuro was quick to latch onto him, not letting go, squeezing onto his waist, pulling him farther and farther away from the source that did him harm, before pushing him behind him. "KuroKen, run!" But now! Kenma had never heard the rooster scream like that. It wasn't out of anger, but more like desperation. A desperation he never wanted to hear. "Stop, it's just a prank. It's just a prank." Then everything was quiet, all except for Kuro's harsh breathing pattern that began to make the setter concerned. "Kuro?" He reached out towards the captain but reeled back as if he got electrocuted with his harsh words. "Don't. I need a minute." His words trembled with a shaky tone as his whole body began to quiver, trying to wrap his head around what had happened. Even his eyes filled with tears. Yamamoto ripped off his mask, unsure whether or not the knife was going too far, but the glare from Kema clarified that as a fact for him. "Look, man, I'm sorry." "Not yet." He hid his face into his hands, massaging his temples as a way to calm down. The blonde cursed internally, wondering if maybe relying on Lev's Russian mafia would have made much more of a less intense outcome. After several minutes of silence and Kuro getting his breathing into a much more stable rhythm, Kema sat there, getting antsy at what was about to happen. Maybe it really was too far. No, it was. In his defense, it never occurred to him that his own teammate would put a knife to his throat. He was ripped from his thoughts when he felt two hands pull him into a familiar embrace. There he heard Kuro's heartbeat still pounding wildly, trying to escape the sheer terror that Yamamoto brought to light. "Don't ever do that again." "I won't, I promise, And you!" Kuro spat, glaring at the spiker who stood there awkwardly. "What the hell were you thinking using a knife? A fake one I could let it slide, but a real one?" The second year still, never actually thinking that through. "I'm sorry. Something really could have happened." His eyebrows further into the coldest stare either of them had ever seen. "And that is something I will never be able to forgive you for." Kenma flushed, seeing what lengths Kuro would go for him. "Tetsu, I'm sorry. Really sorry." "It's okay. I mean, sort of. I can't say I'm totally happy about the prank, but it would be hypocritical given the allergy prank was not so nice." "Nice? I was fucking pissed." He huffed, crossing his arms. "Exactly. We really need to stop getting hooked on these pranks." The setter giggled. "We really do. I think this one was too many near heart attacks for me." "You can second that here." They laughed. Kema felt relieved that the tension that's been present since the allergy prank had finally dissipated, and they could finally laugh together again like normal. While he was finally better, curses string bad luck with pranks, Oikawa was finally prepared to go all out with the prank, and it actually be a prank. Additionally, for the very first time, he anticipated this prank, so he knew exactly what to do. More than likely, Iwazumi was still at home, catching up on some studies, either that or taking his new puppy for a walk. Either way, it gave him the proper opportunity to prank his lover. He ran up to his bedroom, quickly dialing Iwazumi's cell, trying to contain his laughter whenever he picked up. "Kawa?" "Iwa." His voice was in a hushed whisper that even the aides had a hard time deciphering. "Toro? What are you saying? I can barely hear you. Iwaoka could faintly hear his puppy barking in the background. I think there's someone in the house. The background noise drowned out. Iwazumi stood up from his seat and paced around the room, a nervous habit he developed. What do you mean there is someone? I don't know. If he'd remember correctly, Iwaoka's parents wasn't supposed to come back home until the end of the week for a business trip. Just stay quiet. I'll be there as soon as I can. He was already throwing his shoes on and walking out of the house before he finished his sentence. Find a place to hide until I get there. Iwaoka slammed his head into the wall, making a loud thump loud enough for the ace to hear. Kawa? Please hurry. The raven was running, regaining his much calmer pace than before. The setter had the phone up to his mouth with shaky breathing, hiding in a storage closet in the laundry room, already tying some rope around his wrists to the best of his abilities and covering his eyes with a piece of cloth, all before abruptly hanging up the phone. Iwazumi cursed, quickening his pace if even possible, turning onto Akawa's road and barging through the front door. The room was quiet, too quiet even. He grabbed a bat from the doorstep, wondering when the last time it was used, figuring it might have been Takeru's from the last time he'd visit. Iwazumi had been so concerned that there might be an intruder, it never once occurred to him that maybe he'd kidnapped Okawa. The silence became unsettling and all sense of stealth vanished. Toru? He hastily checked his bedroom, his parents' bedroom, the bathroom, the kitchen, all being in vain before opening the last room. He saw his lover on the ground, towards the corner of the room, with his hands tied behind him and his head facing the source of the noise, not being able to see with the blindfold. Toru, it's okay. He reached out towards him, but immediately recoiled, seeing the setter scoot further into the wall, away from him. Don't touch me! Iwaoka began fighting against her restraints, making the latter cringe, knowing that was scraping at his skin, rubbing it raw. Hey, it's okay. I won't touch you. It's Iwa. I'm not going to hurt you. Hearing that it really was Iwazumi in front of him, his entire demeanor changed and he practically launched himself towards the ace, tripping while doing so with a blindfold still restricting him of sight. Calm down, it's okay. The embrace was like no other, as if letting go meant certain death. Iwaizumi tore off Okawa's restraints, deepening the embrace once the setter's hands were free to secure tightly around the ace's waist. He crawled into his lap and buried his face into the crook of his neck. Hey, it's okay. He repeated again, however that wasn't what Okawa feared. It wasn't some imaginary kidnapper breaking into his house. It was his own anxiety, growing, thinking about what the next moments would hold, coming clean about the prank. There was a brief moment of peace with Iwazumi comforting his lover, yet still on guard in case the intruder really did pop up from the shadows, ceasing what level of calmness he got Okawa to. Come on, we are going to my place. Get whatever you want and let's go. But better yet, you have everything you need at my place. Iwazumi rose from the spot on the floor and took his hand on the ladders, gently pulling him up from off of the ground, allowing him to be Okawa's stable ground for when he stumbled. Iwa, please wait. Out of pure concern, the ace halted all additional thoughts that racked his mind, wanting to give the taller his grasp at his surroundings. After all, this wasn't about him at all. It was about Toru and his own well-being. What is it? Are you hurt anywhere? His eyes quickly roamed his lover's body, not knowing what he would do if he saw even the smallest amount of blood on him. He didn't know if he could bear seeing the setter in any more pain. He quickly saw the run marks on Okawa's wrist from where it was rubbed raw by the rope. However, if that was the worst of his injuries, then he could bear it. It was a simple fix. Every time he closed his eyes, he saw those tubes and wires connected to Okawa, who laid on the hospital bed, nearly as pale and as thin as the hospital sheets that covered him. Those very same tubes and wires were the only thing keeping the setter from being buried 6 feet under. It was the only thing separating him between life and death, and that thought terrified Iwazumi to no end. Iwa? The ace snapped from his triggering thoughts, seeing the setter hovered over him, stroking his chest in a calming manner, which seemed successful, seeing that his eyes were now focused on the brunette, rather than how they were before, unfocused and staring out into nowhere. Hey, are you with me? Iwazumi nodded his head, still trying to process that he had overthought everything, sending him into an inevitable panic. Okawa had stood up on his own accord, now dragging the ace out of the laundry room and into the living room, letting the familiar surroundings calm him even further. Never having much memories in Okawa's laundry room, at least the living room was known for the majority of their memories together. It was just a prank. There's no one here, and I'm not even hurt. Iwazumi tensed, truly wanting to believe that it was a prank. It seemed to be his cowardly retreat, assuming that every inconvenience that had struck down on their love was nothing more than a terrible and cruel prank. He stood up, surprised to feel his knees weak, yet continued walking towards his setter's bedroom, of course with the latter following behind. Iwa, what's going on? His mind felt plagued with every fear ambushing him all at once. His number one was seeing his lover on that bed, over and over again. His knees hit the ground, letting his head fall onto the side of the mattress with the scent of Okawa lingering, filling his lungs with the vertigo he craved. Hajime, you're scaring me. What's... He yelped, feeling the ace's strong arms pull him down to the ground with him. Those same arms held him tightly, almost enough to crack a rib or two. He quickly refrained himself, knowing that even though it had been a year, the setter still faced those aching problems in his side. Please, don't do that again. His grip tightened, but only slightly this time, burying his face into Okawa's chest. Okawa gasped, feeling her shirt dampen with his lover's tears. No, don't cry. He pulled the latter from his shirt, Hajime's face crunched in sadness as tears streamed down his stained cheeks. He used his hands to quickly wipe them, but was beat by Okawa, who cupped his cheeks in between his hands, wanting the ace to look at him. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please, just don't cry. I'm at fault for everything. Don't be hurt. It was so quiet that Okawa barely even heard his mumbling, but it was heard, and it was enough to shatter his heart into an infinite amount of pieces. He should have known that this was a bad idea. It never occurred to him how him getting hurt affected the strong ace. Even the strong ones can only be strong for so long. Iwazumi was proof of that. Okawa's eyes burned with tears, rapidly falling, not meaning for his prank to escalate the way it did. It's okay. I'm not hurt. I'm not hurt. I promise. He repeated, and would as many times as it takes to ease the ace's mind. Hell, even if he'd been stabbed in that very moment, bleeding out, he'd still repeat those words until his very last breath. He'd continue repeating those words, embracing the shoulder, watching through the window as the sun slowly hid behind the trees in neighboring homes. But none of that mattered. Time didn't matter. All that consumed their time was their skin embracing the warmth of the other. Iwazumi could pick out the faint rumble in the setter's chest every time he spoke. The room was filled in orange hues from the setting sun illuminating the room, with the sweet tone of Tojo's voice filled with love and reassurances. Hajime? Much time had passed since they made it to the bedroom. but this was the first he looked up on his own accord, signaling that he was listening. I'm sorry, I didn't mean for this to happen. For him to break. Oikawa never thought that during this whole time with him being hospitalized, Iwazumi had been bottling everything up for his sake. He didn't say anything, just laid back down, eternally thankful that Oikawa had moved him to the bed. He'd grown exhausted, ready to sleep. It didn't help that the setter had always put him at peace, so the fact that he could relax in his embrace, engulfed in his scent, away from all harm, that was his true euphoric paradise. Yes, so that is the first 3 of this kidnapping prank. There is still, hold on, I have to count, 6 other ships for this challenge, so I'm sure you can tell by the thumbnail it ain't gonna end pretty. Because obviously with me, you know that there is going to be a gone wrong, and I have decided to contribute 2 of the ships to go wrong, so yeah. Comment down below which one was your favorite and which one you are looking forward to. Thank you so much for watching. As always, if you like to stay up to date, check out any of my social medias. I hope that you all have a wonderful night or evening.